Good afternoon. I would like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and the press who have joined us today for this meeting of today's Cabinet. We have several important issues to consider at today's Cabinet meeting, but before we begin the formal meeting, I have some housekeeping information that I do need to share. First, please be aware that this meeting is being live streamed and that a recording of the meeting will be available to view on the Council's website. Second, the Council allows filming and photography at its public meetings, so please feel free to take pictures and post to social media during the meeting, preferably on that side of the room. Third, can I ask everyone to turn their mobile phones to silent or vibrate whilst the meeting is taking place? And finally, in terms of housekeeping notices, there is no fire alarm test scheduled for today, so if the alarm does sound, it's a genuine one, and please leave by the nearest marked fire exit and proceed directly to the fire assembly point in Charles Swift Square opposite the multi-storey car park. We're now moving into the formal agenda for the meeting. Agenda item number 1 is apologies for absence. Matt, as Senior Democratic Services Officer, please can you report any apologies for absence today?
Good afternoon, Leader. No apologies for absence.
Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item number 2, which is declarations of interest. Does any member wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interest? No. Agenda item number 3, which is minutes of the 14th of October 2025 Cabinet meeting. We are being asked to approve the minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on the 14th of October 2025 as an accurate record. If any member does not agree, would you raise your hand now? I can't see anybody disagreeing. Agenda item number 4, which are petitions and public questions. We have received one question from a member of the public relating to an item on today's agenda. In accordance with the Council's public speaking scheme, there will be a 15-minute session to deal with public questions. Mr. Ed Murphy, would you like to read?
Good afternoon and thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Edward Murphy, would you like to read out your question as submitted? You have 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Please switch on your microphone using the middle button when you are ready to begin.
Afternoon, it should be on, is it? Yeah,
Yeah.
thought it was. So the premise of this question is related to the next item on the agenda, actually. It's about, can we rely upon information when we're planning budgets and finances? And the question is, with the submission being made to government by this council in respect of its preferred option for local government review inevitably lead to a significant council tax increase for Peterborough residents, though that may not be the case for those in the rest of Cambridgeshire.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your question. So, in the harmonisation appendix, which is drafted following the joint meeting of the scrutiny committees and presented to full council on the 12th of November, actually sets out the position on council tax for each local authority under each option. So I hope that you've had the opportunity to have a look at those papers as well. But to set it out in an understandable format, the estimated increase for Peterborough residents under option D is £31.52, which reflects a 1.77% increase, equating to around 61p per week. All options being considered result in a higher level of council tax for Peterborough, so these are regarding all options. As we know, Peterborough's Band D rate is amongst the lowest in the country and is lower than all other Cambridgeshire authorities. For example, Huntingdon's current rate of council tax is £117 higher than Peterborough, and Fenland's is £206 higher. Even though all options result in a higher level of council tax under option D, ours is actually the lowest. So we are aware that due to the differing starting positions, this will result in some increases and some decreases in council tax across the region. However, council tax harmonisation is a process that must happen as part of the local government reorganisation and is set out in legislation. It ensures that under the new authorities, all residents are paying an equal amount for services. Having said that, Mr. Murphy, do you have a related supplementary question? Because you've got 1 minute to do so if you do.
Yeah, so to summarise, the answer to the question is yes, it's going to cost us more and Cambridgeshire less. There's been some figures out there, and I go back to what we were saying earlier on. Can we trust the information we get in? Because only a few months ago, Cabinet members said the budget would be balanced. In a minute, we're going to see it's not. And I think for 9 years now, we've failed to balance the budget. So is it true that it's going to cost 50 years to pay this back? And really, in the predicament we're in, shouldn't we be making decisions that don't cost us the earth because we're about to go bankrupt?
So in terms of failing on our budget over the last 9 years, I think that you will see that we have met the legal requirements for meeting our budget legislation over the last 9 years. So we have, indeed. In terms of the 50-year payback period, obviously, as you can see, detailed business cases have been put forward in respect of each of the options that have been stipulated. But what I will do is hand it over to one of our officers, such as Christine or Emma, to elaborate on your question specified regarding the 50-year payback period to give you a bit of more of an elaborate answer. Thank you.
Through you, Chair. So in terms of the business cases that have been arrived at, they've obviously had to use some high-level assumptions. And through that process, we have arrived at quite a long payback period, it's fair to say, on that option. However, that does not mean that as part of the process of setting that new authority up, you would look at all the transformation methods at your disposal, and this authority is already looking at a lot of those as a result of its budget position. It's having to look at where it can introduce new IT, etc., to facilitate those efficiencies. So it would be intrinsic upon that new authority to be doing way better than that in order to pull that payback period forward. Obviously, we can't hypothecate that without getting into the detail, and that will be for the next stage of any process. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. Right, moving on, we have agenda item number 5, which is local government, LGR, reorganisation in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. And this can be found on pages 3 to 468 of the agenda, which is a very long agenda item. But I'll now introduce the report. Because I own it, you see, so I'm going to have to talk about it. It's great when I get round to it. So we're convened today to consider the recommendations of full council and to determine our council's position on the future shape of local government in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, which is really important. Over recent months, 5 local government reorganisation options have been developed and thoroughly evaluated against the MHCLG criteria, local priorities and independent expert analysis. Every one of these 5 proposed options, which are option A to E, present distinct opportunities and challenges, particularly in relation to financial resilience, service quality and the preservation of local identity. The decision to make a submission to government in relation to local government reorganisation is an executive function due to all functions not specified as non-executive in the local authority functions and responsibilities England Regulations 2000 or elsewhere being the responsibility of the executive. Given the significance of this decision, the various options were debated at a joint meeting of the scrutiny committees on the 28th of October 2025. Thereafter, all members were afforded the opportunity to debate the issue at an extraordinary meeting of full council on the 20th of November 2025, which resulted in it recommending option D to Cabinet as the preferred option. Cabinet may consider the views expressed at the joint meeting of the scrutiny committees and the debate, indicative vote and the resulting recommendation of full council when taking the decision, but it is not bound to do so. This evening's meeting centres on the following 2 business case options. Option A, which is the North-South business case, a 2 unitary authority proposal. And option D, Greater Peterborough business case, a 3 unitary authority proposal. This Cabinet meeting marks a pivotal moment. We are not simply just reviewing options, we are being asked to lead. The government has made clear that only one option can be submitted by each council. Our submission must be robust, it must be well reasoned and reflective of both our local ambitions and the national policy framework. I therefore urge Cabinet members to engage with the evidence presented to weigh the strengths and challenges of each model and to agree a preferred option for submission. This decision has the potential to shape the future governance of our region and must be made with clarity, confidence and collective purpose. Let us now move to the substantive discussion and ensure that Peterborough City Council puts forward a compelling and credible proposal by the 28th November deadline. Thank you. I open up the floor now for discussion, debate and questions. Councillor Katie Cole.
Thank you, Leader, and through you. I attended this morning a meeting of the chief executives of the academy trusts across the city, and part of the discussion around LGR in terms of the timeline and the phases that we have to go through in order to achieve LGR by the prescribed date. The CEOs were asking, even though this is going to take up a lot of officers' time and expertise and lawyer time to make sure everything is correct and ready to hit the ground in 2028. Can they please be reassured that statutory services and the added disruption for officers is not going to take the eye off the ball of the key things and key priorities that need to happen in this city other than LGR?
Thank you, Councillor Cole. I think it's actually a legitimate concern that has been proposed. Obviously, in terms of the timeline and the structure of how local government reorganisation is going to come about, we have been allocated for our area and our region implementation officer. I'm going to check the role and the designation with the legal officer who will be overseeing the process of LGR and how that comes about. Is there anything else that the monitoring officer would like to add?
Thank you. Yes, the council is bringing on board a specific resource to help with LGR in the form of a programme director, which is being recruited at the moment. In addition, we are absolutely aware that there is a need to continue to discharge the statutory functions of this council right up until the vesting date of any new authority in 2028. We also already have work streams and project boards put together to help deal with LGR, and that is very separate from the day-to-day runnings of the council.
Is that okay?
Thank you. I just have a follow-up question, if that's okay, Leader. Thank you. So following on from the children's and young people scrutiny last week, there were also questions which relates to some of the other items on this agenda today regarding admissions, school transport, school places, because a lot of these documents go beyond 2028 in terms of planning. So they were just wanting to make sure that policies regarding school admissions, especially depending on which puzzle pieces get put together with Peterborough, with LGR, will be taken and adapted accordingly. That's something that I was asked to mention during this meeting, because at the moment, as I've said to lots of people, I'm taking on board lots of views. So I just want to have a well-rounded idea, please.
I think those are really important questions, and actually across the board in the region, many of those facets along all of our directorates will be taken into consideration, whether that be children's services, children's education. We've got our adult social care, where we know that some of our district councils don't actually, it's not within their remit to provide those services. So I think that those are services that will become more apparent as LGR takes shape and form. I'd also think that it's really important to take this opportunity for those that are watching as well, especially for people that share your concerns, to engage in the consultation that's put out when government actually takes the desired or preferred option out of the envelope and presents it to the region. So it's for everybody to engage, or people that you know to share the opportunity for them to engage in the public consultation, to have their views and to share their concerns as well. I'm not sure if there's anything else that we need to add to that, but...
Thank you, Leader. I think it's just about reassuring the public and members that the purpose of a shadow authority being created is to assist with that harmonisation and handover process. So when any shadow authority comes into being, it will run alongside this authority, but this authority retains its statutory functions right up until vesting date. The life of the shadow authority will be spent with a team within that authority liaising with the council so that we can best hand over the information and there'll be a smooth transfer of responsibility come vesting date.
Thank you. Councillor Farooq.
Thank you, Leader. I've come to this cabinet and I'm so nervous. I've sat in many other cabinet meetings just like you have, and we made decisions on 2 million, 5 million, 10 million contracts. In fact, we made decisions on 230 million budget, revenue budget. But what we are discussing now is the biggest decision we ever have made or we ever going to make in our careers, and the most impactful in the whole of the Peterborough. So we have these proposals, and what I want to highlight is that this change is not driven by us. As Councillor Murphy said, should we really be going forward with this? This change is driven by the government, and we are participating in it to ensure that the best change is delivered for Peterborough. And in fact, minimum change is delivered with maximum reward for it. So options we have in front of us, and we have 5 options, but the 2 particular ones are the most simplest and geographical one is option A, where you draw a line and you have north and you have a south. It satisfies the government criteria for around 500,000 people. But this is not about geography, or this is not simply about drawing a line in the middle of it. It's about a lot more other things than that. And that is prosperity, culture, growth, identity, and how best to deliver our services to our vulnerable people, and the governance. So what option D then? So we want to choose an option which shouldn't really be too much about the initial investment, because we make initial investment in every businessman out there who opens a business makes an initial investment, but they always do a forecast about first year income, second year sales, third year, and that's what we need to look at. How much prosperity this option would give us, which should easily compensate for the initial investment. There are other services we need to consider health services, the police services, but to me those perhaps remain consistent because they're already providing that within the Cambridgeshire. If we were going outside the boundary, for instance either into Northamptonshire in Oundle or Rutland or Fenland, that perhaps would be the case. And as I said, we want to go for a minimum change, for a maximum reward. And one of the smaller changes we want to make, because at the end of the day, we do present one of the most deprived parts of the country as well, and we do not want to burden our residents with a huge change in the council tax. And let's make no fuss about it. It's not we going to make that change. It's the government, and it's as you mentioned earlier, Leader, about the harmonisation. So option D does represent that smallest change out of the 2 options compared to option A. So therefore, I would urge my rest of the cabinet members to look at all those different elements before we're making the decision. Thank you.
Well, some really fair points that have been put there, Councillor Farooq. Councillor Angus Ellis.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Katie Cole made a very important point earlier around the anxiety of fellow local authorities within the waste management, for example. There's different ways that different collections of bins, different collections of waste. We are ahead of the game in food waste, for example, in comparison with a lot of the councils around Cambridgeshire. But this will really there's going to need to be a lot of work in the process once the decision has been made by government. We can't do anything until we know that final decision to make sure that things are going to be running smoothly for when things change. This is for us going to be, well, for me, it's the biggest decision in my life for local governments. I think it was back in 1974, something like that, when there was something as big as this. Okay, I made a fairly big decision, or contributed to the decision around when we became a unitary authority. And one of the reasons we became a unitary authority was to bring in-house, take more control of the services for ourselves. So my view is that if we were to now water that down by extending the boundaries to half of Cambridgeshire, that would be going against, the ethos and the thing I still believe in, taking control of our destinies and being in control of Peterborough ourselves for the people of Peterborough. The option D is also, there's been an expression, although Fenland District Council aren't keen on the process per se, they did express if they had to make a option, it would be option D as well. They in a sense, they agree with us in that. It gives us more local control, better identity, better democratic representation and response. If you're having to go all the way down to March or somewhere, or you live in March and you're having to go to Peterborough for something, it isn't as good. So I think when you also looking at the balance, population balance is more equal across the three unitary authorities which would be there. And there's also representational balances there. So I think, personally, for a better option for Peterborough people, so that they got more control and we've got more control, is option D.
No, thank you very much. I think that some really interesting actually comments made by both cabinet members here, sort of talking about identity and obviously talking about the importance and prosperity as well in making that decision. Councillor Christian Hogg, you'd raised your hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. As everybody around the room will know, this cabinet is made up from different political parties, so maybe I can give a slight Liberal Democrat perspective to this. We've just had a full council where we asked for the views of all the members of all the parties, and there was a constructive debate around that. And we've had various other debates around scrutiny, etc., that, all councillors, ultimately should have been in a position to have made their feelings heard on this. And that's something that we've done. And I think, although the decision is being made here today, we need to have a mind on what has gone before through those meetings. So the Liberal Democrat position is, if I'm being honest, this is not, if somebody was to give me a map and a pen and go, draw the line as to where Peterborough should be, and that should be the new authority, I would want to maybe include other bits and pieces that we've not been allowed to include, such as Stamford and Deepings and Oundle, because it's about where those people feel that they draw towards. But of all the options that we had to choose from, and ultimately it's like a beauty competition. People get eliminated along the way, and eventually you hone it down to which one do you want to go for. So from my point of view, what is this exercise about? This whole exercise of unitarisation is about saving money. And that's where it's come from central government. They want to save money. They want to streamline the decision-making processes, etc. And I absolutely understand that. But our position is to look at what does that mean for us here in Peterborough. They take care of the country, we take care of Peterborough. That's our job. So I take that very seriously, and it's about looking at the locality aspect of this situation. So for me, we looked at all these options. We've borne it down to option A and option D. Option A, I can see that financially there's this situation, but we can't just look about what's good for Peterborough. We also have to look about what's happening across the rest of Cambridgeshire. We've got a situation where Cambridge and South Cambs essentially are saying, we want to be together, you lot, the rest of you sort it out between you, how you then divvy up the rest. We don't really want to have anything else attached to us. And this is the big fault line for me for option A, because option A is basically saying, sorry, you're having East Cambs as well. So ultimately, Cambridge and South Cambs are not going to want option A. Fenland have said they don't want option A. They want option D. So we do have to kind of bear in mind in our decision-making process, because they are neighbours, we are friendly, we talk to each other, it's how we get along. We have to look at that as an aspect as well. And I do take on board this situation with the finances, but I think sometimes, you know, in life, you make a decision and then you make it work. And for me, that, you know, this 50-year payback thing, I think once we get into the weeds and start thrashing away, we'll find innovative ways of making sure that figure comes tumbling down. So, for instance, you know, I know it, you know, cross authority working in terms of, you know, we've just unpicked ourselves from Cambridgeshire in terms of adults and children's services. But what we're talking about is three unitaries here. Now, it seems to me fairly simply that Peterborough has got a very strong, thanks to the hard work of officers, a very strong offering in those areas, and that with option D, we're just going to be bolting on a little bit of Huntingdonshire, so that's not going to be a massive change to our services. So they'll be able to cope. The existing services of Cambridgeshire could be lifted and shifted into either one of the other two authorities, and that, to start with, could be something that could be shared between those two authorities, and then maybe over the period of time they could then decide how that could be unpicked, whether or not they wanted to keep that together or whether or not they wanted to unpick it. So I do think that the figures have been put together for this kind of idealistic three authorities. If you were starting from scratch, how would you put that all together, and how much is that now going to cost us? But actually the reality of the situation is we can't let it cost us that much. So we have to do something different. What I'm really, really concerned with is the lack of locality that you know, members of the public want to be able to interface with their councillors, and those councillors need to understand the area that they are supporting. I know nothing about Wisbech. I know nothing about Ely. You know, ultimately, and then I wouldn't expect them to know anything about Peterborough. So, for my mind, if we go too much, we end up basically distilling what we've got here. I fully understand that Peterborough needs to grow. We're not big enough. But I think there's, for me, the Goldilocks option is option D here. And that's why I will be backing it. But I've had basically, you know, the get-go from my group to back D. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hong. I think that was really impassioned. In terms of geography, just to remind everyone, again, I'm just going to lay it down really sort of quickly. So we're considering obviously option A, which is our north and south option, which comprises of Peterborough, Fenland, Huntingdonshire as the one part, and the other part as East Cambridgeshire, South Cambridgeshire and Cambridge City. So that's your option A. And then your option D is your Greater Peterborough option, your Mid Cambridgeshire option, and then your Greater Cambridge option. So in your Greater Peterborough option, we're looking at Peterborough and West Huntingdonshire. Your Mid Cambridgeshire is your Fenland, East Huntingdonshire and East Cambridgeshire. And then your Greater Cambridge is South Cambridgeshire and Cambridge City. So that's just to give you all a bit of a mind map if you're able to sort of visualise that. And it is on the public reports pack as well. Councillor Mohammed Jamil.
Thank you, Leader. I've thought long and hard about this. And first of all, I looked at the figures coming from the portfolio that I, lead on. And I thought that the option D, the figures, are very scary. People look at that and think, what the hell is going on with this and why would it take so long? The other side of me is that I am also a social democrat. I represent a ward of about 10,000 people. They want to know who their councillors are. They want to know what services we will do. For me, The difference between the two comes down to the fact that in option D, you have greater control and a smaller authority, and those people will be able to access those services, the council, a lot more easier than a larger authority where there will be more people being involved. Now, like Angus said, I was here, not in the council, but I was around 1997 when we decoupled from Cambridgeshire, probably the best thing that we ever did. And I vaguely, I don't remember in the 1970s when we had the last, local government reform to that extent. But we have an opportunity here for the next generation. The opportunity that D represents is, for me, is that A1 corridor. The potential. We as a city are growing, but we've got nowhere else to grow. However, that would make sure the people, the jobs, the houses, our city, and those that are around us, for years to come, we will be able to offer them jobs, we'll be able to offer them homes, and I think that option is better and it outweighs option A. So for me, I'm going to be going for option D on this one, and I'd like to think we are also reflecting the views of the council the other day, from full council the other day. Now, our opponents, or the opposition the other day, were saying they called it gerrymandering. So I went back and I looked at the figures if they were, on the option A, and guess which party would be the biggest party if we did it at the moment. And that's, they accuse us of political gerrymandering, yet they come up with nothing better other than to say, well, you're gerrymandering, you're going to have no control over it, the government is going to have the ultimate control, which is true. At the end of the day, the government will make that decision. But for us and Peterborough, I think option D is the greater option, and that's where I'll be going today.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jamil. I think that you make an important point around gerrymandering, and actually I think fingers were pointed to myself as leader as well in stating a preference, which was exactly that, a preference, and not outrightly saying that there is a preference for any one option. Actually, all options have their merits and all options have their downfalls, but I'm also a councillor that represents a group of residents that have their own needs, and I think that you have illustrated that very well too. I see that Councillor Katie Cole, and then we have Councillor Zamir Ali.
Thank you, Leader, and through you. I haven't made much of a voice about which of the options that I have in front of me over the last few months when this has been discussed. When this originally was put on the table, we were told that the new local authorities needed to be or have a population size of around about 500,000. That was then in subsequent meetings told that it could be around about 300,000 for a new unitary authority. But for me, who's born in Peterborough, went to school in Peterborough, I've taught in Ely, I've taught in Wisbech, I've taught in Littleport, and the one thing that comes from the education that I've taught there is locality and how important it is to feel that you belong somewhere. As I've said, I went to school here, I'm bringing my children up here, my parents lived here, they moved up here from London in the 50s, 60s. Being from Peterborough is really important, and having that sense of local identity. I have an inner city ward for my residents, and people or young children struggle enough to locate Peterborough on a map, let alone all the other bits that go with it. I'm very mindful of the fact that with option D, it looks like we're cutting Huntingdonshire in half. I think this is one of those huge decisions that whichever side you fall on, you're not necessarily going to agree with. I see there are merits with option A. I see there are merits with option D. There are also cons for option A and option D. However, to me, being able to call our new unitary authority Greater Peterborough is one of the draws, because it keeps Peterborough at the centre of the decision making, and for me, that is the only thing I am thinking of, is keeping Peterborough's identity and taking that forward. I don't know, I won't be around in 50 years when this happens again. So for me, Peterborough's identity is key.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillor Ali.
Through you, Chair. I didn't comment when it came to full council, but I really just wanted to listen to all the arguments put forth. And everyone knows that I tend to have a loud opinion normally. I mean, I'm gonna say something quite unusual now. I kind of agree with Christian Hogg with some of the points that he's made. For once, if I had a preference, which the rules didn't allow us to have, is I would have brought in certain aspects of the geographical points, but we didn't have that option. Localization is important. Communities are important. I'm a Peterborough-born lad, through and through Peterboroughian, and would we lose our local identity by going so big with A? I think we would. There are certain points of A, i.e. financially, which when I was an advisor and they look a lot better in that regard. But I'm still torn when it comes to this. I mean, if we reflect upon what happened at the full council, 36 councillors decided to go with D, whilst the Conservatives, to be frankly honest with you, I wasn't very happy with, because it didn't reflect and gave representation by saying they're not going to vote. I think it was a bit childish, to be frankly honest with you. So at this point, as I said, I've listened to the arguments and I will vote appropriately where I should. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to make a contribution? Remember, this is your opportunity. This is an executive decision that will be made today. I know that more or less anybody has had a chance. Everybody has. Anyone? Councillor Cole? I know I'm going a bit in rounds.
Sorry. Thank you, Leader. Just for the public's awareness, what happens next after this meeting?
Yeah, so what happens next is that after this vote takes place, and I have both officers on either side of me, the final submission to government takes place on the 28th of November. And then in terms of timelines, we will be presented with the preferred option. Is it in January 2026, or am I brushing it a bit too much? No, I'm going to hand it over to Matt now.
My expectation is that there will probably be a range of options submitted to government, depending on what happens across all the region. We are hoping that we will submit one letter to the Secretary of State with the attached options and the business cases and the relevant information. There will then be, I'm sure, further conversations. So we've got an MHCLG government advisor who is supporting the region. There will be discussions around those business cases, I am sure, with the Chief Exec's leaders and other officials. And I'm expecting early 2026 that they will then probably whittle down those options down to 2 or 3 maybe, depending on those discussions. We will have an opportunity to make a case for those options, and the government will then formally consult. They say through to the summer, whatever that means, but the timescales are quite broad at the moment. But I'm expecting a decision from government round about the summer next year to say we are landed on this option, and then we will be able to plan accordingly, run up to the elections in 27. But obviously we're not sitting back and waiting for the government decision. As Graham has highlighted, we're already working on various work streams, because this is happening, and actually the more we can do in preparation now, the better. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you very much for that. So yeah, so whittling down to 2 or 3 options early next year, with a provisional or so to speak an option next year in the summer to let us know. So that's briefly how it's going to pan out. Councillor Mohammed Farouk, and then I've got Councillor Jamil.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to highlight a couple of other points. Of course, we are gathered here today and we are talking about what's best for Peterborough. One of the challenge for option D is going to be setting up of Mid Cambridgeshire. their children's services, their adult social care, and all the other services which are at the moment counties providing, and of course the county is going to be dissolved. So that's going to be the case. However, we are led by democratic system and collaboration. As leader, you call it a coalition of common purpose, and I'm so delighted that today almost everybody's making comments what's best for Peterborough, because you could easily go off tangent and design an authority which is completely politically suited to one political colour or another. But none of us here today are motivated by that and doing that. So today the decisions we make is going to be what is best for Peterborough. And for that reason, I'm going for option D. And secondly, we are democratically led by this. And as a number of councillors earlier mentioned, the Joint Scrutiny Committee has led us towards this particular option. And the council meeting, the majority of the councillors there have led us to that position. So for us, something else has to considerably outweigh that to overturn those democratic decisions. So I would be going for option D as well. Thank you.
Thank you for letting us know, Councillor Farouk. Councillor Mohammed Jamil.
Thank you, Leader. I just think it's important for the public out there to know that this is a cabinet decision. It's not a full council decision. And when we were originally making these decisions, we were going to meet before full council. I just want people out there to know that as an open and transparent cabinet, that we've made the decision to have the council meeting first so we can listen to the views of all the council, following the scrutiny committee, and then we are now hopefully going to be representing the views of the majority of the council. So I just want that out there.
I think that's really important. Councillor Neil Boyce.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to speak, but as you're aware, I chaired the parish liaison for a number of years, and having spoken to a number of parish councils since this decision's been put upon us, parish councils are very nervous that the authority would get too big. You know, parish councils support their residents locally, and their views is if the authority got too big, that would be lost in the sheer number and the size of that authority. So a lot of parish councils, I've only spoken to a number of them, are very nervous of the authority getting too big. So on that basis, I will be voting for option D.
Thank you. So I think that this has been some really good discussion, and quite a lot like what Councillor Farouk has said, I feel incredibly nervous. I've never felt nervous like I have today about this, because we are literally sat here determining the future of what our local authority will look like. And so many of us here, in fact, it's sort of, you know, they talk about fate and the fact that so many of us of different political inclinations have come together to make a decision, not just about our city, but about the region as well, because we've got to consider the other options for the other cities and towns within Cambridgeshire. So it's a huge responsibility, but I feel reassured that we are representing a range of views. Some of us have spoken about the full council meeting and how our opponents had decided not to vote. I think that it's important that we place on record the fact that we have a duty and an obligation to represent the views of our residents. So for those of us that did make that decision on the day, I think that it was reflective of the thoughts, of the conversations that we've had with our residents, and part of our duty as elected representatives to make sure that we are enacting those thoughts of our residents, which the opponents failed to do. So I feel that that needs to be placed on record, actually. Members here have also resonated their thoughts about the need for maintaining democracy and the fact that a smaller, more strategic authority will be able to reflect a wide range of political views, and there is more of a parity in a three-unitary option with preserving that entity alongside identity that those have spoken about here today. And Peterborough is very unique in terms of both options. You know, we have our very diverse core, and we've got our rural populations, areas that Councillor Neil Boyce serves as well, and indeed south of the river we see Councillor Hogg, who serves his resident, and you know, areas south of the river have their own unique identity, and identity is really important to people here. We've also discussed here the aspect of growth and regeneration along that A1 corridor, which is important to all of us, and the prosperity in the region, which is inherently important. It obviously fosters a sense of opportunity and how our future generations are going to be able to benefit from that. So I'd really like to thank each and every one of you for putting your heart and soul into this. We've had a lot of briefings over the last couple of weeks. We're now coming to a decision-making process on this. And I'd like to thank the officers as well who have taken their time. We've got our officer, Rena. Thank you very much for joining us here today. And Emma as well for compiling those really complex reports. I think that getting here and the mass of data that we were presented with. And on that note, I would like to say, Ed, that I'm not corporate minded, but I do know my maths. So I said that I would bring that up today just to make you aware. However, they were very comprehensive and very detailed. And in terms of if you wanted to extract any element of information on how to work through the business cases for all 5 of those options, which must have been an incredibly arduous task, we really, you know, give you due credit for that. So thank you very, very much for undertaking that task and presenting that to all of the members, because without that, it would have been very difficult to make this decision. So having summarised that debate, we'll now go to the vote. And I will tell you how that is now. So we're being recommended to, in terms of putting in mind 4 options. So first of all, we've got to consider, review and evaluate the recommended options, assessing their strengths and challenges. So please think about that. And considering the implications for residents and services that has just been alluded to. The second is to approve a preferred option to submit to government with supporting rationale and evidence that aligns with policy objectives. You've all read the business cases. You all know what's been presented before you. The third is to approve the proposal document for the preferred option and resolve that it should be submitted to government alongside other proposals from councils in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough under the cover of a joint letter from council leaders. And the fourth is to delegate authority to the Chief Executive in consultation with the leader of the council to finalise a proposal document for the preferred option and any joint covering letter from council leaders, and submit this to government by the deadline of the 28th of November 2025. So that's all of those 4 considerations to take on board. Now, having assessed all the options, we've heard the debate here today, and we're considering the views expressed by members at the joint meeting of the scrutiny committees and at full council, because some of those members aren't here today, so it is important that they know that we have taken their views on board, and I'm sure that many group leaders here have also been talking and discussing with their members. So it appears to me as what I will do is I'll present it to a vote as to what our preferred option is to submit to government. So therefore, I would like to ask you, those of you who vote for an option A, would you like to raise your hands? And those who vote for first for option A. So proposing option A, we'd have to vote, wouldn't we, first? So it's the first time we're doing this, you know, since I wasn't born in 1972, so I won't know what would have happened then. So please excuse me. However, I did not want to. I wanted to. Over here, it seems that the script is that I'm supposed to read the room and see what it is you all wanted. Now, some of you explicitly have stated that you're going to be going for option D, but not everybody did, okay? Apart from one or two. So if I'm reading the room correctly, and I don't want to put words into your mouth, are we all in agreement that you all preferred option D? Yeah?
Or leader, would you like a proposal? Whichever one's easier.
Proposer. So, yes, now I'm going to propose option D. Councillor Mohammed Jamil.
I'd like to propose that we go with option D.
Okay, and who's going to second it? Okay, Councillor Mohammed Farouk. Okay.
Happy to second.
So, it is now obvious that option D is our preferred option for submission. And now we've got to show hands, okay? So those of you who vote for option D. That looks like that's unanimous across the board, okay? Any of those against option D? Yep. I'm just checking with the monitoring officer whether we need to vote on option A. No? No, we don't. Okay, so that now we've got to go to the Chief Executive, Matthew Gladstone, to read the result. Oh. I told you. Sorry.
Thank you, Leader. To confirm, Cabinet has unanimously voted in favour of the recommendations as read out by Councillor Kyman set out in the report, and that under recommendation 2, Cabinet's preferred option is option D.
Thank you very much. Excuse the slight quip there. The Chief Executive has his name on the letter alongside mine, so I thought I'd give him delegated authority to announce it, you see. Okay, but thank you very much for that. So, Democratic Services Officer Matt Making has just announced the most important decision of the Council, so you supersede us both. Thank you very much for that, members. Thank you for that pivotal moment in our Council and Regions history. Right, take a pause, and then we're going to go on to agenda item number 6, which is our budget control report, quarter 2. This item can be found on pages 469 to 488 of the agenda. Councillor Mohammed Jamil, Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Governance. Please can you introduce the report?
Thank you, Leader. The quarter 2 budget control report sets out the financial forecast for 25-26 as of the 30th of September. You will note that we are forecasting a £6.1 million overspend, which is an increase of 0.9 million since quarter 1. This reflects the continued challenging financial environment, with the overspend primarily driven by delays in delivering our ambitious savings programme and higher than expected capital financing costs. If this position materialises at the year end, the general fund will be required to cover the gap. Overall, the key pressures remain the same as reported in quarter 1 and are highlighted within section 3 of the report. While 38% of our savings are already realised and a further 21% are rated as low risk, 41% remain as red or amber, indicating a moderate to high risk of non-delivery. We are actively monitoring these and implementing mitigations where possible. Although the application of flexible use of capital receipts policy has boosted our reserves, balances remain vulnerable, and therefore it is imperative we reduce the overspend as far as we can. The capital programme has been realigned to reflect project timescales and to reduce borrowing wherever possible. At quarter end, £18 million has been spent or committed, with a forecast outturn of £61 million against a £64.1 million programme. We continue to prioritise funding from grants and capital receipts before incurring new borrowing. You will also note, members, that there is a recommendation to approve the updated budget environment policy. This is a minor change, but will allow us to act more efficiently and maintain strong financial management by allowing the incorporation of new grants within the revenue and capital budgets during the year. I want to be clear that this does not replace any approvals or decisions around the expenditure procurement. The usual governance routes will still apply. Finally, I would like to reassure members that we will remain focused on managing these challenges through robust oversight, targeted mitigations, and taking proactive steps to deliver efficiencies and identify further savings in order to improve the overall financial health. I therefore ask Cabinet to note the contents of the report and approve the Innovation Fund reserve commitments and support the updated budget environment policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jamil. Well, members, we'll move to both questions and debate. Does anybody like to ask a question, like to make a point? We've got Councillor Katie Cole and Councillor Samir.
Thank you, Leader, and through you. Within the report, it talks about the capital programme. When I was reading through this report, it brought to mind the swimming pool and the funding that's needed for the swimming pool. So have you got any updates regarding that? Because I think it's something that everybody here in the city would like to see, a brand new swimming pool.
Okay, within the capital programme, I'll ask Christine to comment on the swimming pool.
So in terms of where we are on this matter, obviously when the government make an announcement, we will then obviously seek to incorporate it within the capital programme. And we have been speaking positively with government representatives in terms of taking that project forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leader.
Councillor Ali.
Through you, Chair. What is the likeliness that we are going to be able to get a balance and get that £6.1 million?
It's $1 million question, but I will try and answer it and then ask my colleagues. I don't want to say we're overconfident, but by the end of the year, we will have a balanced budget. We are, as I've said, we are putting things in place in order to ensure that we are heading in the right directions. Now, I've got to say, fairer funding will have a big say on this. So we look to our government to make sure that Peterborough gets a fair settlement. And if we get a fair settlement, I'm confident that we will have a balanced budget by the end of this financial year. Christine, I don't know if you want to add anything.
So I'll deal with the two aspects separately, if I may. One is the 26-27 budget and onwards, where we're hoping for a 3-year settlement that recognises our population growth, our indices of deprivation for the city, and also our ability to raise council tax. They are the fundamental building blocks of the fairer funding process. So we're extremely hopeful that through that we will get a better settlement for the city. That could be transformational in terms of the budget and mean we are in a substantially better situation than where we are at the moment. So we await those announcements with extreme interest. We've had some initial work done on that, and that's been previously reported through to the executive, and we will receive those later figures. Hopefully we'll have a methodology fairly soon, and also then figures just before Christmas. So that is the next year situation. In terms of the this year situation, we are lifting every stone and looking at every opportunity to pull in the overspend as it sits at the moment. So there's a huge amount of work going on in the background, looking at those savings where we perhaps have been a little bit later to deliver than we anticipated, when might they deliver, and where they have not delivered, where we might have other opportunities to bring forward. So I can absolutely assure members that a huge amount of work is taking place in the background to try and pull this in. Where it will land by the year end is the $1 million question. However, I can assure you we're doing everything we can.
Thank you very much for that. Do you have a follow-up question, Councillor Ali?
Yes, I do. Do you feel that our savings ambitions or targets were too much? Or, yes?
Through you, Chair. They were very ambitious, as were the previous year's savings. So that is something we are certainly taking the learning into for the setting of the 26-27 budget.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions at all? Councillor Hogg.
So also the timings of those savings, I think that we pointed out that the budget this year, everything seemed to be coming from April the 1st and not being feathered in, was clearly something that we need to make sure we don't fall into that trap again.
Through you, Chair, absolutely. We're looking at taper, so tapering savings in, and also looking at our monitoring of that savings process, so we ensure they are on track, and if they're not on track, what we're doing to mitigate that situation.
Thank you. Anyone else at all? Make a point, a debate or question? No? Okay. So, if that is the case, we are now being recommended to Cabinet. Number 1, consider the financial forecast for 25-26 as at Q2. 2, approve the proposed Innovation Fund reserve commitments as set out in Section 6. 3, recommends to full Council the approval of the updated budget environment policy set out in Appendix C to allow the incorporation of new grants within the revenue and capital budgets during the year. Are we content to agree that recommendation? Agreed? Okay. Thank you very much. Now we move on to agenda item number 7, which is Q2 2025-26 Corporate Performance Report. And this item can be found on pages 489 to 506 of the agenda. I will now introduce this report for you. So this corporate performance report provides a performance update for the second quarter of this year, covering a period of July to September 2025. It also reflects upon the progress made against the council priorities set out in the corporate strategy. A total of 79 key performance indicators or KPIs are tracked throughout the 2025-26 year. Over half of these KPIs showed improvement when compared to baseline figures, with particular progress in the priority areas, which is prevention, independence and resilience, as well as economy and inclusive growth. Notable achievements include increase in the percentage of cases where homelessness was prevented, the decrease in the numbers of children missing education, decrease in police recorded antisocial behaviour incidents, and reduction in the number of households placed in bed and breakfast accommodation. However, there are significant challenges. Over half the KPIs, in other words 51%, remain below target, with concerns over school exclusions, increasing long-term empty homes, timeliness of education, health and care plans, and increase in agency workers at the council. Now, with that having said, does anybody have any questions or would like to highlight their area? I think this is an opportunity actually for members to highlight the significant progress that has been made. Alternatively, if you have questions, please feel free to ask. Councillor Mohammed Farouk, and then I have Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. I've just got a small question, but before I do that, I think growth and regeneration side, we have a number of projects going on which are now actively going forward. I know most of us, over the number of last couple of years, flogged the station quarter quite a lot, but we are reaching a key moment. We are in fact starting work on it this week, Leader, and I think you are attending this on Thursday. And you have invited the Combined Authority Mayor as well on that. So we are so much looking forward to that. And I think that's going to be the game changer for the city. Once that's complete, it's going to be one of the biggest growth projects done for a very, very long time, since the 70s. And then we have city centre funding, where we're looking to increase the footfall on the city centre side. Similarly, work is already in the progress for Signet Bridge. Swimming pool is another one, perhaps, which Councillor Zamir Ali will speak about. But what I wanted to ask, one of the questions was that, where it says the KPIs 51% of remain below target in number of those areas, whether it's homes or education and that, do we have how do we monitor those, and do we then set up smaller milestones to ensure that we reach those targets and bring them down?
I think that's a really good question. I will hand it over to the officer to respond in terms of how we meet our targets. I think, Rena? Thank you, Rena. Are you okay with the question in terms of achieving the smaller milestones ahead, given 51% of our KPIs obviously haven't reached target, and what we intend on doing in the future?
Yes, thank you, Leader. So with regards to some of the KPIs, we will not reach target until around Q4 because they're cumulative KPIs. For example, the financial ones, for example, they are some key cumulative KPIs. However, in terms of monitoring, we do monitor the KPIs month on month, and there is rigorous discussion and planning done each month to keep on track and up to date with each of the KPIs.
So where we fail or lag behind, do we allocate extra resources to ensure that they're brought up to speed with the rest of them?
It will be dependent on the activity being undertaken within each portfolio area or portfolio board. So in terms of that, I think I would have to need to ask the executive directors to respond to that. But I think with the rigorous monitoring, the relevant mitigations are put into place to keep performance or bring it back on track.
Thank you very much, Rena. I think, Adrian, you wanted to come in on that.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Thanks, Rena. Just as an example, to extend Rena's comments, so violent crime in the city centre is one of the challenging areas. We've seen that number increase slowly and become quite stubborn to reduce. So through the portfolio board, we have applied both extra resource but also a real sharp partnership focus, which will lead to a full multi-agency workshop which is taking place in the next few days. All of those agencies, police, the council, all the council departments, fire, the Peterborough positive bid, will all apply a focus as a direct result of us tracking performance in that space. It's I think an example that is very relevant and shows the or demonstrates our ability to monitor our performance in this way.
Are you happy with the answer? I think we had Councillor Angus Ellis, and then we had Councillor Ali, and then Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Leader. I just want to point to page 497. We're looking at the number of households who have now registered for the e-permit scheme, which is now over 41,000. And the big thing there also is the amount of waste which is now not going into landfill, which is actually nearly 13.5%. And not only is that better for the environment, but also it reduces costs on landfill tax as well. The other thing on that page, active travel, with, you know, I think I've probably already said about the Fort Wood cycleway, but we can't underestimate the fact that that is just the start of our plans for active travel around Peterborough. We're also looking at a Fort Wood cycle route, which will be a safe route linking the Fort Road cycle route, a safe route from on Fort Road linking it to the city centre. And I'm really pleased that Councillor Farouk mentioned the projects like the Station Quarter and also because that is key in that area as well. And also one thing he didn't quite mention was the Lincoln Road regeneration. As a ward councillor in that area, that is on time and working well.
Thank you for highlighting that. Councillor Katie Cole.
Thank you, Leader, and through you. So I wanted to just celebrate some of the successes within education. So persistent absenteeism has fallen by 13%, and this is due to a new system called Study Bugs that's been implemented across the city. As a teacher myself, education will open doors into the future, and it's really important for me that all children go to school. But this new system is enabling attendance officers to pick up persistent absenteeism much faster, and is therefore trying to prevent children becoming permanent or consistently absent from school. There are challenges though, and as you mentioned, the exclusion rate has increased, but that mainly is because 5 out of those 7 children that were permanently excluded were due to single serious incidences that couldn't be predicted and couldn't be mitigated against. Officers are working closely with those schools to ensure that every child is placed in the most appropriate provision for them. And speaking of provision, you will see within the document it talks about EHCP timeliness, which is quite hot topic within the media at the moment. Educational, or the lack of educational psychologists is one of the main reasons that the timeliness of those EHCPs has decreased. But I'm just going to pass to John Gregg, the Director for Children's Services, to explain what the service is doing to try and mitigate the increase in the fact that it's taking longer for EHCPs to go through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. The challenge arises as a result of the additional requests for EHCP, so an increase of 138 in the month between September and October, as an example. The challenge remains around securing sufficient educational psychologists. To mitigate that, we are employing a number of psychologists on a piece basis, so paying them for their assessments that they complete, and additional resources is being put into the budget for the next financial year. We would expect to see some impact in our recovery from January of next year onwards. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much. Councillor Ali.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Just want to highlight the 8% decrease in antisocial behaviour that's recorded by the police. We are doing a lot more work in regards to it. We are looking forward to reducing that even more, and we want to do it all the way around the city. We've got a knife amnesty coming up. We've got additional enforcement officers out there. We've got a winter plan that's coming as well. The festive season's here. We want to make sure that people that are using the facilities in our city centre in the evenings are safe, are hydrated, and there's a number of other things. But we will be coming with that later on in the month, and hopefully we'll see another decrease next time we go past this.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Leader, and through you. While we're banging the drum for our various departments, I felt that I should get in the queue. So I've just been today to a great meeting with the Peterborough citizens who hold our feet to the fire, specifically around accommodation. And this, in the report, it talks about households in bed and breakfast down to 29. We've got that down further still. But for me, the big headline on that is that Peterborough City Council are not accommodating any children in bed and breakfast accommodation. I think that's a fantastic result. But we've gone further. So the children that are in other temporary accommodation, that being hostels or self-contained accommodation, is also coming down. We've seen a reduction of 47.6% in the number of children in temporary accommodation since December last year. That was touching just around the 400 mark. And as I said, we've more or less halved that figure since then. And this is what this is down to is the transformation within that department. You know, we hear a lot about transformation in the council. We don't really hear about what that actually means in real terms. And this is the kind of long-lasting success that we're going to see from that transformation. Matt Oliver's team, and I have to say Matt has to take the lion's share of the kudos for this work, but the team have really got behind him and taken on board the changes of this transformation, with KPIs and looking at how they can move more agilely to make solutions happen. So big shout out for Matt Oliver and the team in housing. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Hogg. Councillor Mohammed Jamil.
Thank you, Leader. Back to page 497. My colleague, Councillor Ellis, talked about the household, the recycling centre. But I want to ask about the city centre, because it's one of those things when people are asked, they tend to say, we don't feel safe in the city centre. Now, on the one hand, our achievement is that antisocial behaviour is down and below the national line. However, the challenge is violent crime is up. Now, I know Councillor Ali alluded to some of the work that we're doing, but what are we going to do to make sure that we can reassure the public, to make sure that our city centre is safe during the day and at night, so we can have more of the nighttime economy as it should be, you know, for a thriving city like ours?
I think that's a really important question, so I will look at Adrian to help assist with answering that.
Thanks, Leader. Thanks, Councillor Jamil. So fully agree with you. In fact, earlier today, our corporate leadership team reviewed all of our performance indicators, and we had a discussion there about perception, which is as damaging to a city as the evidence itself. If people don't feel safe, the numbers can be as good or as bad as they are, but actually if people don't feel safe, that's a much bigger nut to crack, and we know that that's a current problem. So I think there's three areas here that we have to have happen at the same time, and in no particular order. The first is to have our city centre looking good, feeling clean, feeling organised, lit well, alleyways that are made safe. So a lot of what we call target hardening work, making sure that there's good CCTV coverage, that people feel that they are in an environment which is well cared for. We used to call it the broken window theory, that if you end up with one broken window on a street, no sooner there will be 10, because it looks like people don't care. So that's the first thing. And through this administration's discussions, we are bringing forward a raft of measures partly linked to the insourcing of Peterborough Limited, which gives us an opportunity to refresh the cleaning regime in the city centre. We've also got some investment to make in terms of additional lighting, even small things, I think, like making the appearance of all of the bins and the benches look the same. It all counts towards a feeling of some organisation or somebody caring. That's the first area. The second area is people. Councillor Ali mentioned more patrols, and I think more uniformed presence in the city centre is really important. We saw an uplift of police presence during the summer, and we matched that with more of our own uniformed patrols, and that's really a significant part of bringing ASB down. We absolutely are committed to extending that and also reviewing the shift patterns of our officers so that we start to really build that evening economy, that people can come into the city and feel safe and enjoy it because they know there's somebody on hand in a uniform to act as a deterrent. And then the third thing is animating our spaces, as we grandly call it, which is another posh way of saying have lots of events, lots of curated activity that people can come along to and enjoy. We know when we put on events, people in the city come in their hundreds, sometimes thousands, and we do it really well. We've managed to secure some funding throughout the summer to make sure there was an event on Cathedral Square every single weekend. Our Christmas activity, again, as Councillor Ali mentioned, is going to be very different this year. Much more animation, much more activity. The Cathedral have really joined in and are coming out into Cathedral Square. So I think that will be something very special. And then we want to continue that as the norm throughout 2026. I think if you think about those three things coming together, a city centre which is clean and cared for, is well looked after through patrolled staff who aren't focused on ticketing people. They're focused on making people feel safe and on events that people can bring their families along to and enjoy. I think we'll start to see a difference. Underpinning all of that is the launch of the new Peterborough Tourist Board, and if you haven't already looked at it, have a look at Destination Peterborough. The website is phenomenal and is really starting to promote Peterborough as a good place to come, either as an existing resident or as a visitor. And we've got to start to really improve the brand and the profile of our city. So a whole package approach really here to try and deliver exactly what you're describing.
Can I just...
Thank you, Adrian. Yes, Councillor Ali, you wanted to come in.
Of course I do. Well, one point I will say is there's an event going on the 21st with a very large, nice tree. And definitely, I think people should attend. We're going to make sure that everyone's safe, the area is clean, and like I said, come over on the 21st and you'll see some brilliant event going on in our city centre as well. So, yeah.
Thank you. In true EastEnders style, said in true EastEnders style, EastEnders being the point here, so there's going to be a surprise. Councillor Neil Boyce.
Thank you, Leader, and through you. It's really to echo Councillor Hogg's comments that I think we should champion the work that our service directors and their staff do. This is borne out by having just returned from a local government association hosted adult social care leadership course attended by 22 other cabinet members. I was pleased to be approached by a number of those cabinet members who asked about Peterborough City Council's adult social works team work on AI. Through those discussions, we discussed Hey Geraldine and Bridget, which are two of the themes that Stephen's been working on. And it was due to Peterborough being seen as leading the way in AI transformation in adult social care. I was also approached by two of the course presenters, complimenting Stephen and the adult social care team on their work around early intervention and re-enablement, which is reducing the need for those residents in need, requiring greater support and allowing them to stay in their own homes safely for longer. So I'd like to compliment all of the adult social care team, but especially the service directors across the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boyce. And this has been a really good level of debate as well over here, and actually discussion, where each and every cabinet member has had the opportunity to showcase their relevant directorates' successes. Councillor Raleigh, you want to top it off with something, do you?
I'm sorry, I did forget. One of the people that are working extremely hard is Adrian over there, and also a lady called Claire George. And for someone that works in the background, turns up on days off sometimes, I have to give kudos to her because she is an extremely brilliant worker that the council has and an officer that should be recommended.
Thank you very much. We put on record our thanks to Claire and obviously the team. And if we sum up, in short, we have a look across the board with the KPIs, and obviously, you know, due credit goes to the corporate leadership team and cabinet members who've really actually, since coming into their relative positions, have taken the bull by the horns in wanting to take an avid interest in what's happening. And if we're to have a look at the growth and regeneration, as Councillor Farouk alluded to the fact that we've got the exciting station quarter where this week we will hopefully see work start in some form. Alluding to Adrian's point around safety across the city, I know that we've been rather unfortunate with being unfortunately subjected to two events, one at a mosque, and on the back of that, it actually, if we look at the positives of it, the partnership working, we on the back in terms of the fact that as an authority we are central to working in partnership with stakeholders across that board, be it the constabulary, be it our joint mosque council and other faith groups, and how we come together and have the ability to bring these stakeholders together to try and put plans in place to make sure that we are keeping our residents safe and learning from lessons too. So a huge theme across the board in terms of safety has been duty of candour and the ability to reflect on where we can improve on that. So I'd really like to give credit to Adrian and the team in working around the clock, and Christine was on call when we had the unfortunate incident with the stabbings on the train, and I think we all sort of came together, the city came together, but more so we were led by our officers in terms of looking after not just our elected members, but people in the city. So I'd really like to give credit to the fact that you worked around the clock to make sure that everything was put in place. We're having a look at children's services, which we know are under a lot of pressure, but we've had our monitoring visit from Ofsted as well, which gave us due praise over some of the care leavers offers that we have to our children in the city and what we're able to give them the best start in life when they're coming from a very vulnerable place. So well done. And obviously adult social care, an area that's very close to my own heart, but kudos to Steve and the team on the innovation in terms of making the service efficient and making the savings as well, whilst at the same time not compromising on delivering on those services to some of the most frail and vulnerable people in our population. So rounding all of that up, I think it was really important for us to highlight some of the achievements across the board too. So with that being said, what I'd like to do is to ask you to recommend to note the corporate performance report for quarter 2. And are we content to agree that recommendation, members? Thank you very much. Now moving swiftly on to agenda item number 8, which is approval of the Peterborough Sufficiency Strategy for Children in Care and Care Leavers 25 to 29. This can be found on pages 507 to 522 of the agenda. Councillor Katie Cole, Cabinet Member for Children's Services. Please can you introduce the report?
Thank you, Leader, and through you. All local authorities have a statutory duty to secure sufficient accommodation for children in care. Peterborough City Council's Sufficiency Statement for Children in Care and Care Leavers outlines the Council's commitment to providing stable, nurturing and supportive homes for children and young people in care. The statement reflects a child-friendly city approach that places children's voices and needs at the centre of service design and delivery, with this document having been developed in consultation and engagement with our care for children, young people and care leavers. The sufficiency statement details the current population and needs of children in care, the Council's in-house services, externally commissioned provisions and the identified gaps and next steps to improve placement sufficiency and outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, members, are there any questions or debate or any comments at all? None? Okay. So, that being said, we are recommended to, number 1, agree that the implementation of the sufficiency statement should proceed, and number 2, extend thanks to Peterborough's Children in Care and Care Leaders for their contribution in developing the sufficiency statement 2025 to 29. Are we content to agree that recommendation? Thank you very much. We move on to agenda item number 9, which is the acquisition of 6 one-bed flats. This item can be found on pages 553 to 562 of the agenda. Councillor Mohammed Jamil, Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Governance. Please can you introduce the report?
Thank you, Leader. I have pleasure introducing this report that proposes the acquisition of 6 one-bedroom flats. This recommendation is made in response to the increasing demand for accessible, high-quality housing within the city, particularly for those individuals who require temporary accommodation. By investing in these properties, the Council aims to both alleviate current pressures within the local housing sector and enhance support available to some of the most vulnerable members of our community. Specifically, this acquisition will not only serve single occupiers, but also has the potential to provide much needed transitional homes for care leavers as they move towards independent living. The proposals outlined in this report are closely aligned with the Council's broader strategy objectives to promote social stability, improve residents' well-being and foster greater independence through secure and appropriate housing solutions. I therefore recommend to Cabinet that we approve these and so we can actually go out and buy and close it.
Thank you, Councillor Mohammed Jamil. So, I pose to members, are there any points of discussion, debate? Would you like to ask any questions around these acquisition of flats? Councillor Katie Cole.
Thank you. It's not a question, it's a comment really. I couldn't be more delighted that this is happening and that we are acquiring these 6 one-bedroom flats. As I've said many, many times before, I take my corporate parenting responsibility really seriously and would like to think that I would support my, at some point, will support my own children into their own accommodation. So the fact that as corporate parents we are supporting care leavers into accommodation is exactly what we should be doing as a council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cole. Councillor Christian Hogg.
I just wanted to commend Felicity Puddock for bringing this acquisition to us. A unit of 6 one-bedroom flats does not come up that often. So, you know, it was a bit of a unicorn event, shall we say, and to be able to bring it in at the figure that it's been bought in for, with not needing much in the way of modification, I have to say that does commend your department quite well, and I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Point well made, Councillor Hogg. Anybody else at all? Well, Felicity and team, thank you very much for your work in this area. It is duly noted. and accepted and regarded as well. And on that note, members, if there's no other questions or debate, then we will move on to the recommendations, which are: number 1, approve the acquisition of the 6 into 1 bedroom flats for the purpose of meeting housing needs and providing temporary accommodation for single occupiers. Number 2, note the opportunity for these flats to be utilised for housing care leavers in line with the Council's commitment to supporting vulnerable young people. Number 3, delegate authority to the Executive Director of Place and Economy in conjunction with the Executive Director of Corporate Services and Director of Legal and Governance to finalise the purchase. So therefore, members, are we content to agree that recommendation? Agreed? Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Felicity. Agenda item number 10 is approval for the Council to become a member of the NPP Consortium Limited. This item can be found on pages 563 to 570 of the agenda. Councillor Angus Ellis, Cabinet Member for the Environment and Transport. Please can you introduce the report?
Thank you, Leader. This report is seeking approval for the Council to become a member and potentially stand for election to the Board of Directors of the not-for-profit company NPP Consortium Limited. The Council has been part of the National Parking Platform since April 2024, a pilot scheme to enhance motorists' experience of parking by allowing them to pay with a selection of their favourite mobile phone parking apps. Initially funded by the Department for Transport, the operation of this scheme will now pass to the NPP Consortium Limited Company. By becoming members, the Council will have an influence in how the scheme is operated and developed in the future, and allow us to continue our innovative work in this area.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ellis. Members, we now move to questions, debate, discussion. Is there anybody that'd like to ask a question? Councillor Christian Hogg.
Thank you, Leader. So I just wanted to say that this decision is essentially just an evolution of the NPP Consortium, and I think it's right and proper that Peterborough, having been a founder member of that trial, as it were, should continue with its involvement in the organisation and hopefully help to shape its future. So I absolutely commend this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hogg. Anybody else like to ask a question or make a comment? No. Well, with that, we are being recommended Cabinet to: number 1, approve the Council to become a member of the NPP Consortium Limited, company number 1628285. Number 2, approve the Council to stand for election to the Board of Directors of NPP Consortium Limited and give delegated authority to the Executive Director for Place and Economy or their nominated representative to act on behalf of the Council in this regard. Number 3, delegate authority to the Executive Director of Place and Economy or their nominated representative to determine all decisions and to act on behalf of the Council as a member of NPP Consortium Limited, and in the event the Council becomes a director of NPP Consortium Limited, to determine all decisions and to act on behalf of the Council as a director of NPP Consortium Limited. Are we content to agree that recommendation, members? Thank you very much. Thank you, Adam. Now, our next agenda item is number 11, which is parking and environmental enforcement software procurement. This item can be found on pages 571 to 578 of the agenda. Councillor Zamir Ali, Cabinet Member for Communities, Poverty and Public Health. Please can you introduce the report?
Through you, Chair. This report seeks approval for the Council to award a contract to a preferred, I can't even say the word today, preferred provider for the parking and environmental back office software. This software supports the important work our parking and environmental enforcement teams do in the community in order to deliver our corporate priorities of creating a safer, cleaner and more vibrant city. The chosen provider presents the best value for the Council and has a long history of industry expertise and reliability. We also provide, my apologies. We also provide continuity for our residents who interact with the permit system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ali. I'm looking towards members for any discussion, debate or question at all. Councillor Hogg.
Go on then. So, I have to say that our parking enforcement team are a great bunch. They do some really hard work in challenging circumstances. You know, giving out parking tickets is always very griefy, I have to say. So, you know, Adam's department is run very efficiently, very well. They do a great job. You know, the system clearly works. Otherwise, we'd have a lot more complaints from members of the public and from members. So I absolutely commend this decision. But more importantly, I'd like to take the opportunity to commend the team for the hard work they do. And I know with the Christmas period coming up, that's going to become slightly more difficult, and you know, with the weather, and also, you know, slightly more griefy, shall we say? So, you know, I hope the team, you know, hit the Christmas season well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any more questions, discussions, points at all? Well, Adam and team, you've seen the praise that has been levelled to you, which is duly noted and absolutely deserved in its own right. Thank you so much for all that you're doing in challenging circumstances, and for joining us as well. So on that, we would like to, members, number one, approve the award of contract for parking and environmental back office systems to Imperial Civis Enforcement Solutions Limited, which is the company number 2023383, with effect from the 1st of December 2025 for a period of up to 5 years, being initial term of 3 years with the option to extend up to 2 years, with a total value of £505,615 excluding VAT and £606,738 inclusive of VAT, subject to an annual inflation in line with CPI over the possible term of 5 years. Number two, delegate authority to the Executive Director for Place and Economy to authorise annual uplifts in line with CPI throughout the contract period. Therefore, are we content to agree that recommendation, members? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Adam. Agenda item number 12 is schools admission policies for 2025 to 26 for transitions and in year for 2025. This item can be found on pages 579 to 648 of the agenda. Councillor Katie Cole, Cabinet Member for Children's Services, please can you introduce the report?
Thank you, Leader, and through you. The Schools Admission Code 2021, issued under Section 84 of the Schools Standards and Framework Act 1998, sets out mandatory requirements and statutory guidance for local authorities, which includes an admissions policy. The Schools Admission Policy for 2025-2026 for transitions and in-year policy for 2025 details how the local authority will allocate school places on the receipt of an application form to ensure that every child receives an offer of a school place. This policy has been brought to Cabinet for approval today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cole. Is there anybody that would like to ask any questions or raise any points at all of discussion? Councillor Hogg?
I do have one question. Just that the pressures that are going to happen around the school admission policy, is that going to cause us some extra pressures on the school time transport at all?
Thank you, Councillor Hogg, for your question. So, school rates vary and fluctuate from year to year and over a period of time as birth rates fall and birth rates rise. Recently, there has been a huge number of pupils, a larger number of pupils in primary school, and they are now moving into secondary school. And only this morning at the PCEO's meeting, the projected number of pupils that are going to, or spaces that are going to be needed over that we currently have, is going to increase over the next few years for secondary schools. Policies such as this admissions policy is really important in order to provide everybody that needs a school place with a school place. I will pass to Libby, who is the expert in this area, but we still have a number of pupils that are known to, or known within the Peterborough area that haven't yet put their admission form in for a school place. So I'm going to take the opportunity now in this public forum for message to get out there that there is still time to put your school admission place in, and it's really important you do so. If you are worried about where your child is going to go, schools are always open. They have an open door policy. They'll be happy to go and talk to you, take you around the schools, make you feel comfortable, ask the questions. But I am going to pass to Libby, who can give you a more data-driven answer than the one that I've just given you. Thank you.
Good evening. So the admissions for school places is governed by the School Admissions Code. We have set out how we would like to allocate the school places for September 2026 for the transition applications. So those that are looking to apply for reception, Year 7 for September, and those moving to junior schools. Over the last few years, our data has shown that we have been able to offer all children, or 99.98% of children, a preference school. And those 13 children that we weren't able to offer a preference school, we have offered transport to, if that is over 3 miles as a safe walking route, which is detailed within our school transport policy. Any child then that is allocated a school that is a preference is not necessarily given school transport, because the parent has chosen to apply for this school place, and it is also deemed that as part of that preference you are able to take your child to school, unless you are applying for a catchment school and the distance between your home and the catchment school is too far. So for instance, as an example, Arthur Mellows would be an example for that, because Arthur Mellows is the catchment area for the north area of the city, and that band enables that catchment children to receive catchment transport buses.
What I mean is that because of the we're trying to, in some places, shove more children into, it means that there's going to be a higher likelihood of people not getting their first preference, presumably.
We are, for 2026, we have more children than we've had in previous years that are currently on roll in Year 6. What we are looking to do is increase the size of some of the schools through what we call a bulge year, and increase the number of children that we're able to allocate up to the published admission number in the planning areas where we are looking to see place pressures. Those areas where we're not looking to see place pressures and we have falling rolls, we're looking to keep the numbers static within those areas, and we're looking to be able to fill schools that haven't received a high number of applications. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mohammed Jamil.
Thank you, Leader. My question is around the children who have not applied. You know, as much as Councillor Katie Cole can appeal to the people, but we've probably got 20 people watching online, may not be the people that we're trying to target. So how do we aim to catch those? Because I suppose the administration behind those who are still left there, because, you know, you've got those that you do, and then you have an extra headache trying to sort out those that you don't. So what actually happens, or what are we actively doing to make sure that we can capture those children and they're in a classroom in September?
Okay, thank you for your question. So we have a system which enables our school admissions portal to link directly with schools. Our applications for school places go on a system, the admission system, which enables schools to see which children have and haven't applied. Those children that haven't applied, we are now actively looking to support them in applications, whether that be supporting families to apply online through our school admissions portal, or sending the family a paper application form if they're struggling with the applying online. We are able to target these families and send applications out to the home address for any families that are struggling to find the paper application or haven't received it from the schools. And we also go out to neighbouring local authorities for children who attend or who live within our area but attend schools outside of our area.
Can I just ask a further question? What about people who, A, don't have access to a computer, don't speak the language? How do we get hold of those children to make sure they're there in school?
If they're already on roll at a primary school within Peterborough, then we use the primary school, interpreters at the primary school, and we always also have a child missing and education officer who goes out and supports us with getting applications for school places, using interpreters or using Google Translate to be able to support and be able to offer the same service that we offer to those families who have English as a first language.
Can I just ask a general question around admission policy? I presume you have some schools that are more popular than others, hence why we have a preference of 3. And then you give me the number that there was only a small number of children. But I suppose, having spoken to parents, I think they all want their children to, I don't know, maybe go to King's or something, but King's has very limited. So when we put the policy out, when we send information out, do we tell them that this school is going to be very oversubscribed or not? So they will be wasting one of their opportunities. Do we do anything of that ilk or not?
We do. We're very transparent about how we allocate school places. So we have information over the past 4 years available on the Peterborough City Council website, which details for every school the number of applications that the school receives, the total number of preferences, whether that be preference 1, preference 2, preference 3, and then followed by how many children we've offered to each school in round 1 of allocations, which happens on Secondary National Offer Day. And then we also publicise the same information for round 2, which takes place about a month and a half later for all those children that applied from the 1st of March to the 1st of November, apologies, to the 31st of March.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Libby. Are there any other questions at all? No comments? Okay, so colleagues, we are being recommended to approve the admissions policy for 2026-2027 and that it be published on the Peterborough City Council website for transparency. Are we content to agree that recommendation? Thank you very much. We move on to, and thank you very much, Libby. I think we now have agenda item number 13, which is adoption of the proposed school organisation plan 2025 to 2030. This item can be found on pages 649 to 692 of the agenda. Councillor Katie Cole, Cabinet Member for Children's Services, please can you introduce the report?
Thank you, Leader, and through you. The Council has a statutory duty to ensure that there are enough school places in Peterborough to meet demand. The Council must therefore plan, organise and commission places for schools in Peterborough so that high standards are maintained, diverse school communities are created and fluctuating pupil numbers are managed efficiently. This updated school organisation plan aims to provide an overview of current and future pupil numbers, which supports planning the provision of school places across the city. Predicting school demand is a complex task because where children go to school involves a range of different and often conflicting factors, and as a result, planning for school places is based on probabilities, not certainties. This means that while projections may be made from robust calculations, they do not offer any guarantees. This document will therefore be reviewed annually and updated accordingly during the 5-year period. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think a lot of questions were also asked relating to this agenda item in our previous agenda item and topic. On that note, are there any comments or questions at all? I'm giving the opportunity. Yes, Councillor Mohammed Farouk.
Thank you. I appreciate there's a obviously lower birth rate over the last few years and the number of primary schools struggling with numbers. Is there any particular primary schools who are really low on numbers coming forward? I'm trying to forecast. I don't want to come across, say, in 3 or 4 years' time, that particular school is closing or particular academy is looking to close a school because they're unable to fulfill the student numbers.
Thank you for your question. We're not looking to close any of the schools that we have within Peterborough. We're looking to utilise the space that we have within schools in alternative ways. So if we have any schools with falling roles, we're looking to open send hubs or look at alternative ways to offer alternative provision to some of the schools within Peterborough so that we're not in a position that we have to close any of the schools within the city.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Katie Cole.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to sort of support the comment that Libby has just made. I've said many times in public, I want to see children educated within their local communities, and that goes for children who have SEND needs as well. So I couldn't be more happy that the council is actively trying to converse with schools and discuss with schools about opening SEND hubs within schools, so that local children can be educated in a local area, keeping those friendships and keeping those community ties that are so important to areas within this city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, if there are no other questions or comments at all, colleagues, we're being recommended to approve the 0 to 19 School Organisation Plan 25 to 2030. Can I ask for that you are content to agree that recommendation? Yep. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Libby. Thank you. Now, agenda item number 14 is renewal of Microsoft Enterprise Agreement December 2025. This item can be found on pages 693 to 698 of the agenda. Councillor Jamil, Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Governance, please can you introduce the report?
Thank you, Leader. The current Microsoft Enterprise Agreement is set to expire on the 31st of December 2025. This Cabinet report seeks approval to authorise the renewal of the contract with our existing supplier, Softcat plc, for an additional 3-year term commencing on the 1st of January 2026. The proposed contract has an estimated annual value of 1.467 million, amounting to a total of 4.401 million over the 3 years. Microsoft licenses play a vital role in supporting the Council's digital transformation initiatives and public service commitments. They offer a secure, scalable and effective solution that enhances digital service delivery, improves collaboration, ensures compliance and boosts operational efficiency. Purchasing Microsoft licenses through a reseller is mandatory, and switching suppliers is unlikely to yield significant savings due to the government framework that dictates pricing for public sector organisations. Softcat has consistently provided exceptional licensing advice and cost-saving measures, making them a reliable partner for the Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mohammed Jamil. Do we have any comments, questions at all on this? Pretty straightforward, isn't it? So, therefore, I will now ask members, if there are no questions or comments to be made, that number 1, we authorise the contract award for the Microsoft Enterprise Agreement to Softcat plc for a period of 3 years with effect from the 1st of January 2026 at a total cost of 4,401,000. And number 2, authorise the Council to enter into any legal documentation relating to the recommendations set out in 1. Are we content to agree the recommendation, members? Agreed? Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And with that, I'd like to thank everybody in attendance, and I will now close the meeting. Have a safe journey home.